See, the only thing that matters are the decisions you make and the mindset you have. Gratitude, hard work, patience. These are the keys. My name is Brandon Akira, and this is the Think Tank.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Think Tank, episode 3. So excited. We are going steps up the ladder, right?
I love it, man.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be back. Last episode was a lot of fun. Having Denise with us, Denise Co.
Yeah.
Talking about a very broad subject being success.
Yeah.
But I think that we kind of tackled it in a good way. We gave it two different lights and and everything in between.
A little bandwidth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which was really wonderful.
Yeah.
Today we're gonna kind of get into more of the specifics of success and certain sort of
steps,
key things that you need in order to sort of keep walking that line and continuing towards that path of success. What are we talking about today, Brandon?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Tenure obviously is important because commitment, we talked about the power of routine and the importance of that, of being able to achieve goals. It's important to be self-aware.
Right.
Knowing who you are, knowing who you aren't, and being able to double down on your strengths. Finding a team, a core support, whether it's an employer, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're starting out a podcast. You want to find people that complement what it is that you're trying to do. And also just being comfortable in your own shoes. That's a big part of self-awareness, and just trying to say, look, I am who I am. Society wants to, massage all the things that we aren't good at, the things we aren't good enough at. And it's very, very powerful for you to appreciate that you are beautiful the way you are. You are great the way you are. You just have to pay attention to those things that you're passionate about, pay attention to the things that light your fire, and find a way to inject that into whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's that job that's gonna get you into, being your own business professional in your own company, or if you wanna climb that corporate ladder, or if you wanna be the best person that you can be in your family and a family life.
Ultimately saying that it's like, look, you can give yourself the permission to do the things that you need to do for yourself.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to always take on the influence of every part of society.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of getting lost to people these days, is that they're feeling like they have to conform to reach these bigger and bigger goals.
Yeah.
And I think the one wonderful thing, especially about 2018 and from here on out, is that that's not the way we have to prescribe to things anymore.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, and I think a lot of us would agree that in a personal relationship, you have to be good with who you are so that you can be good to someone else. If you're in your working life, you have to be comfortable with your strengths and comfortable with your role and comfortable with your employer if you're going to succeed at work. And when that kind of dovetails into another thing that we're going to talk about today, which is company culture.
Big word right now. It's a big buzzword.
Huge. It's like all the companies that everybody wants to work for. Well, I can only interpret it in my own way. I think it's the heartbeat and the pulse and the soul of a company. I think that...
Can you be a little bit more specific?
50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was factories, right? That it was the conveyor belt mentality where it was, from sun up to sundown, we did this, and the amount that we were able to produce and the amount that we were able to push out, that was our productivity. Nowadays, we've got so many variables. We've got computer systems, we've got technology, we've got phone calls, we've got customers, we've got relationships with other businesses, and all these different elements that can kind of get in the way of us staying focused or distract us from what's really important when we're trying to drive success in our careers. And company culture is important for the employer and for the employee, because it says we put the customer and we put the employee first. But how do we do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to someone who has a little bit of insight on that. Okay. And she actually works for Lululemon.
Oh,
and
great
she
company.
has tremendous experience in the corporate environment. And I think that having that kind of insight will help drive perspective with company culture, the power of it, the importance of it, and also take a look at the importance of tenure and being self-aware and how all of those things kind of correlate with one another.
That's great. Awesome. Who are we talking to today?
Yeah. Samentha Carpenter, who is with us here today. Sam.
Awesome. Why don't you come on in?
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hey Sam, how you doing today?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Thank you so much
Wonderful,
for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit, and you and I have had some dialogue, but why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are, your story, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a little bit about where I've come from, who I am. So I am actually a first-generation German immigrant. Came here when I was
Wow.
10 to the United States. Didn't speak any English whatsoever. I think I knew how to say, where's the restroom and may I have a glass of water.
Very
so like
important.
survival.
That's
know,
awesome
key
because I don't
sentences.
pick up any of that in your when I hear you speak at all.
Oh, yeah, it
That's
comes
super
out.
cool.
It comes
And
out.
I love how can I have a glass of water and where's the restroom? They coincide with each other very well. You really help yourself.
I know. I can
Yeah,
say
and,
hydration.
and probably two of the most key things in life that you need to know, right? Yeah.
Hydration, right? So yeah, came here when I was 10. Moved to New York where I learned how to speak English, and then eventually found my way to Atlanta with just for family reasons.
Mhm.
So came here to Atlanta when I was 14, spent my high school years here, and then really started in the corporate workforce right out of the gate at 19.
Wow.
So 19 years old, got my first position as a receptionist at a financial institution, and worked my way up from there. Yeah.
And did you always find yourself, that was in finance? Was that something that you kind of fell into? Was it something you were passionate about, from the beginning? Some people are just like, I love numbers. Some people, like me, deal with them, but only to the extent that I have to.
Second that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a career that I completely fell into. It is that cliche of I didn't go and get a degree. I did not go to college. I learned everything that I've learned in my career on the job.
That's
and
fascinating.
it was with a lot of tenacity, curiosity, and just really wanting to better myself, be better for the company. So it's really just dove into it. I knew I could give more, and I knew I had more to offer, and so I put myself in a position of, just wanting to learn and being available to that for whoever needed it. Being adaptable. So,
Absolutely. That's huge.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so-
That's awesome.
And to know that about yourself at such a young age, and then to go against the norm of what all of us were doing at 18 and
I
19
know,
to go to
yeah.
college, that's incredibly commendable, Sam. Way to go.
Oh, thanks.
That's awesome. That's
You
I
know,
just think it's awesome.
I just grew up a little bit different. My parents did not really focus on education. That wasn't something
Gotcha.
that was really drilled into them. It wasn't something that was hugely important to them. It was more important that I go out there and experience the world,
Mhm.
really, to them.
That's
and
awesome.
in whatever way. And I was kind of on my own a little bit to figure it out. So the way that I figure most things out are kind of going out, thinking outside the box, and walking my own path. I've done everything that way. Always.
And I find it's so interesting when I hear you say this, because I've talked to you about your time at Lululemon, and my perception of you is such a polished professional. When you say you have 10 years corporate experience, that you get
13.
Well, who's counting? Well, she's a numbers person. Numbers person.
That's your grade.
And thank you for listening to the think tank. I'm going back to school. But it's kind of like, I'm like, wow, okay, so definitely a great representation of Lululemon. I'm very familiar with the brand.
Yeah.
Me being in marketing, I'm very passionate about understanding brands. Obviously, company culture is a huge point for me. But I also just can appreciate the professionalism that you bring to the table. I have a feeling that they look for that. In the last podcast, we talked about finding personal and professional success and being committed to one's work by creating purpose in it. And comparing, someone who's an entrepreneur or someone who's in a small business seat to a larger, more established company like Lululemon, what would you look for if you were hiring someone, particularly at a company of that size?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing that I look for in a person is really their growth potential. I want to see someone that's willing to grow, wanting to grow personally and to really benefit the needs of the team too. So taking that on as a personal responsibility of, taking a look at who they are and what value can I bring to the team, but really working on that within themselves.
And making them think about it, right?
Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of growth potential and us as a company, as Lululemon, tapping into that, seeing it, because sometimes they don't even really see it for themselves. We do hire younger people, so they're coming to us at 21, 22, 23, 24 years old.
Maybe with less career experience or...
Yeah. So just being and seeing myself in those shoes at that age,
Right.
and having more experience and knowing, okay, directing them a little bit and giving them the opportunities to say, okay, kind of fostering that.
Yeah. And just in thinking of that, I mean, what I've kind of found with the workforce of today, there's a lot of, and we've talked about this a little bit, the entitlement. I'm here,
Yeah.
I showed up, where's my gold star, where's my cookie, that sort of thing. A lot of people, and we talked about this earlier, where it's like everybody wants to work for Apple, but not everybody wants to work for Steve Jobs, right? It's like, if you kind of think back to like Jeff Bezos and, Amazon being started in a garage, everybody wants to work for Amazon on the top of the mountain, but you gotta climb. There's no gondola, there's no elevator to it, you have to climb it, and these companies, they have a solid grasp on, the kind of professional that's going to help grow the company into the future. But what would you say for, people who, they want the autonomy, they want the career path, they want the benefits, the compensation, they want those things that come with the working for a larger company. What would you think Lululemon looks for to say, I'm going to entrust the responsibility and the opportunity into this individual? Because from speaking to you a couple of times, I feel like you have a good grasp on that, and you strike me as someone that, in any company, specifically at one that represents the brand as well as you do, that you would have a perspective on that. What do you think that they would look for?
I think, it comes down to what you kind of touched up on in your intro, and that's really being strong in who you are, knowing who you are, and having a true set of core beliefs and values. And I'm not talking beliefs like religious beliefs. I'm talking about really knowing who you are and what you stand for. For me, it's been leading with kindness, integrity, being transparent in what I'm doing, honesty, authenticity.
Yeah.
Those things have carried me through my corporate career. They've carried me through Lululemon. And those things are things that I look for in a person, and I know Lululemon, those are the kinds of people that they entrust with, helping to grow in the company and wanting them to represent the brand. I think that's really what, in the end, gains trust with your guests, with your customers, with the outside world, staying strong in those things. And once a company doesn't align with that and with your core values and belief system anymore, then that's the kind of time when it's time for you to get out.
And isn't it safe to say that you, in order to it's kind of like two parts, right? You have to be aware of yourself, but you also have to be aware of the company you work for to make sure that the time that you're putting in, the juice is worth the squeeze, right? Because you have to pay attention to those core beliefs, those core values, and if it does evolve in the company to where it doesn't align, because I've always been an advocate of, the company I'm at, I've been here for over 7 years, but every day I've got to earn it. You're never safe, because there's no safety net in business. Every customer matters, in our case, every patient matters, and in our case, and in every business, the way company culture correlates, every employee matters. So let's talk a little bit about tenure, because I would say that in order for a company to truly assess whether or not someone is a good fit for the company long term, they have to see who they really are over time. Even in an initial interview, we could all probably safely say, I'm going to put on my best face.
Of course,
I'm going to bring the best, even as an actor, to an audition, right?
Right.
But are you going to be a head case to work with on set? What kind of reputation do you have? Is that somebody I'm going to want to marry for 3, movies, right?
Right, exactly.
For a sequel and beyond, So with your experience, talk to me a little bit about your past experience with why you stuck with that company, why it was important to you when perhaps, if finding your own path was something that was kind of rooted for you in your upbringing, what motivated you to stick with that and to keep growing, and how do you think that has set you up for your future?
Yeah. I think the key word that you said there, and how you set me up with this, is just really like the keep growing aspect of it.
Yeah.
As soon as I topped out somewhere, as soon as I felt stagnant, that's when I looked for the next opportunity.
Right.
That's when I think that growth is so important to me. I think tenure it really just shows the company and the employer a proven track record. You have to have that proven track record behind you in order for them to want to invest more.
Right.
And at the end, them investing in you and you investing in yourself, is really what's going to produce the best result.
Right.
So, I think that's not going to happen with 6 months of experience, a year of experience. There's not a proven track record there. And you kind of, there are other...
That's so key.
It's a proven, what kind of results are you driving for
Yeah.
yourself, for the company? Because there are going to be other people that have been there longer, that you kind of can't skip to the front of the line, if you will.
And if I
you
can
know?
add, like you mentioned that, growth potential is a key aspect of, what someone might look for in a promising professional, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a great way to do that is for a company, and this is why I asked that, Lululemon says, well, what have you done? What kind of growth potential might you have here? Are we going to invest in 90 days, 6 months of really bringing you up to speed to run, a location or to hire and fire on our behalf, only to realize that you're going to skip out?
Exactly.
Right?
Right, and I think what can happen is that people can look at a company, whatever company it is, as more of a stepping stone than somewhere to really root themselves.
Yeah.
And I think if it is a stepping stone, great. I mean, it could get you, and I think, who knows where you can end up.
That's where you have to gauge like the
Yeah.
employee, your employer, and see if it aligns with where you want to go, right? And
Exactly.
you have to be true to yourself, and you have to ask yourself that on a chronic basis almost. That's where the power of consistency and routine comes in, I think. Being able to say to yourself that I'm paying attention to where I'm going, I'm paying attention to where the company's going, and making sure those things align, and kind of taking into with the people who are kind of thinking like, well, I could just go over here across the street and I can make like $1 more per hour, or I could go over here and I could get a little bit different of a schedule. That level of commitment, have you found that it has driven results in your career?
I've never been concerned with how much more money I can get somewhere else, or building my own schedule, things like that. I think once you step into that mindset of I can make a tiny little bit more money there, once it's driven by money or outside forces other than like you wanting to grow as a person.
Smaller picture versus bigger
Yeah,
picture.
I think at that point, that's when you're really, those negative results can kind of come in. That's when you see customers falling off or guests falling off, or you're not providing a great experience because you're so grasping to that end result, and you're not concerned with, okay, let me just give my best in this moment. Let me be the best version of myself in those moments, and that stuff will come. It'll come. And once you have that tenure behind you and you've proven yourself, at that point you can ask for those things. You can ask for, hey, I'd really like to work from home one day a week, or I believe I'm worth this now, and these are the reasons why.
Right.
And so if someone's willing to offer you a tiny little bit more somewhere else, but then you don't even know what you're stepping into at that point.
Right.
So
You kind of know what you're getting where you are, but that's where being committed to a position, paying attention to the people that you work for, and realizing that your growth potential along the way has to remain consistent because you're building your reputation.
Exactly.
And if I'm taking what you're saying, focusing on the work, focusing on your ability to deliver will give you the opportunity to ask or to expect or to command what you deserve, at a time when you find it's appropriate because you've been paying attention to your pace at the company.
You're stepping up. I think it's interesting. You're stepping up to your own home plate, not somebody else's.
Exactly.
That's I think incredibly key.
Yeah.
To keep in mind.
And let's talk about self-awareness, because I feel like that being self-aware and being committed go hand in hand. Tenure and commitment are the key to being able to build a successful career. I don't think anyone who is successful would argue that having a healthy routine and being committed to it has been a key motivator, a key product of their success.
Yeah.
You seem to be very aware of your strengths and the importance of being consistent with them. Why do you think it's important for a professional to be aware of their strengths and their weaknesses? And how do you think companies like Lululemon value self-awareness as a key characteristic in professionals? So it's like Lululemon looking at self-awareness and a company like that, but also kind of saying your strengths, your weaknesses, being aware of those things, and how can that drive success for you?
Yeah. So self-awareness for me is something that Lululemon, yes, does look for. I'm really great with that, probably just because I'm hyper aware and I love to learn and study, and I'm curious about everything, so I'm very deeply curious about myself. But I think that can also be totally drawn out. Some of the best employees and people that we've hired, educators as we call them, are people that may have come in with a lack of self-awareness.
Right.
And then just by a byproduct of the environment that they're in, the people that they're around on a daily basis, people that are reading tons of books, listening to podcasts, that are self-aware already, they're they pick that up
Mhm.
because of who they're surrounded by. So it's something that, yes, is looked for, but it's something that you just kind of fall into because of the environment, because of the company culture that Lululemon has fostered
Right,
already.
and wouldn't you also say that being self-aware is important? And I'm kind of translating this from what you're saying, that
Yeah.
you are a representation of their brand.
Mhm.
Whether you're inside the store or outside the store, anybody who you interact with, and you say that you work for a company, well, their perception of the company, in extent, is the perception you present to the outside world. So you being aware of who you are, but the company also being clear on that is important, and that's where they say, oh, well, this person is a long-term fit. We're going to invest in this person. We'll give this person that big bump. We'll give them 2 or 3 people under them because they know who they are, and they're going to represent us well. We're not going to have to micromanage
No.
because big companies don't want to do that. Small
No.
businesses that are trying to scale don't want to do that, and especially, I'm sure entrepreneurs can relate. If you're bringing in one person, you don't want to have to micromanage them. You want to know that when they came in and said, I'm able to drive the results, that they're able to do that. And that's where self-awareness seems to be so important in one's career.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially at Lululemon, it's really important to them that you take entrepreneurship seriously, that you feel empowered as a person to make decisions on the fly and feel comfortable doing so, and feeling elevated and empowered to make decisions that you don't have to run by maybe your manager or some all this red tape where it takes weeks and weeks of approval, because in the moment that's what the business needs, that's what the guest needs to have a great experience, and that's maybe what you need.
And and I'll say that that to me sounds like what we talked about in our last episode about me being an entrepreneur at the company I work with, and you and each of those individuals being empowered, because with a company so large, they can't have eyes and ears everywhere.
No.
And who wants to do that? Who wants to go to sleep at night with one eye open, right? And that kind of takes me into company culture, because I feel like in order to really clearly communicate that on a vast level, you have to really have your heartbeat and the soul, the spirit of the company, if you will, in check, and be able to clearly communicate that to people who probably will never meet, but they all have to represent the company succinct and on the same playing field, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about Lululemon's company culture, how you've seen it evolved, and what it says about their core values, and the message it sends to their employees in the community. Some of the things you told me about are pretty remarkable, and I'm just curious to know a little bit more about that and to share it with our listeners.
Yeah, so at the heart of Lululemon, who they are as a company, really is its people. It goes back to the people. It goes back to the person stepping in for that job, and how can that company pour into you so that you're able to give your best to whoever you're surrounded with, whether it's your team, whether it's guests coming into the store, your community. But it goes back to, it's way more than stretchy pants. I know they look good, blah, blah, amazing.
Actually, Ryan, I think they look great. Yeah.
My pair look great on me.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't know.
But it's
Casual
not,
It remains to be seen, right? I know
Me.
casual Fridays have become fitness Fridays, right?
at leisure, it's a thing.
Yeah.
But it's not about that, and it's not just about yoga, and it's not just about working out and how much can I sweat and all those things. Those things are great. There is a huge portion of that completely to our business. But it goes back to the individual, and is my employee happy? Are the people good? And if those things aren't happening, why aren't they happening? And how can we elevate the happiness on the store floor and in the community?
Yeah.
So,
and it seems like some of the initiatives that they have, I mean, you talked to me about the ambassador program, and I mean, honestly, you can't, I hope people are on this website called Facebook, is that the app?
I think so,
I think so, right? And I see that they have these events, and if you go to their website, I mean, I've done a little digging, and they have events just,
all the time.
like club runs and just things where they just kind of support people coming together in the community. And talk to me a little bit about like the mindset behind why an ambassador program, because it's not like they need to get their name out there, And usually when companies are doing things in the community, it's because they want to spread awareness. Lululemon doesn't really have to do that. So what do you think some of the mentality is behind some of the community events and these ambassadorship type of programs and initiatives they have?
So yeah, like you said, I don't think at this point Lululemon really has to spread its name anymore. And we also, people really are attracted to us. We don't really have to go find anyone or approach them. So,
I asked you that actually once, and I was like, so yeah, how do they recruit? And he was like,
there's no recruiting.
recruiting.
You're asked. That's how it works.
Have you seen the little symbol, the upside down view? Yeah.
And I know I'm speaking from experience because I was really fortunate, and before I ever came on as an employee at Lululemon, I was an ambassador for the brand and was approached to do that.
And what is that exactly?
And it's really just someone that is kind of kick-ass in the community and who they are as a person. They already fit inside of the Lululemon brand standards, and that's really just being leading with integrity, kind of doing things that are outside of the box, getting people engaged, and wanting to just better themselves in whatever medium that is, whether it's holistically or in fitness and exercise.
So it's not just fitness.
It's not.
So don't have to just be a
It's
fitness
a full
trainer.
body approach, really,
Okay.
full person approach,
Yeah.
especially now lately. I think maybe it started more on the fitness kind of level, but as the times have evolved and changed, Lululemon grows with the times, which I really appreciate as a company and what they're trying to do too. But yeah, I mean, some of the programs are amazing. So the ambassador program, it's 2 years of you just kind of getting to play and do what you want, getting people engaged and wanting to just come together. I think at the end of it, it's all about, it is about community. And
Like in shedding sweat.
shedding,
Yeah.
sweat or shed sweat series. So
Yeah.
yeah, that happens every Thursday night. We all get together and work out, and
For like a month or 2 months for the summer.
3 months.
Yeah.
It's for
Wow.
3 months. It's a long time.
And and I've seen like the video, I've attended a couple of myself. I know that they have these kind of things all over, but there's like 60, 80 people. It's amazing.
135.
Okay.
We had
All right.
it
Well,
one
yeah,
time.
I'm not exactly
Wow.
counting,
Yeah.
top hats, but I mean,
Yeah.
wow, it's like the word is getting out.
Yeah, I mean, there's been, Atlanta Magazine's been writing about it.
Mhm.
It's right on the belt line, so you have these bystanders that are kind of just
At
like,
Ponce,
what's going
Ponce
on?
Market, right in
Ponce
Atlanta.
Market.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. It's at the end of the day, it's fun to come together as a community and say, like, this is what we're doing. We're all doing this together. We're in it together, and feeling like you're uplifted and with each other around, especially with what's happening lately. I think people can feel so isolated, or we need each other.
Mhm.
We need each other.
Yeah.
So building that sense of community and just a place to go, and it's more than sweating. It's just building that sense.
And building relationships and maybe
Yeah.
getting people comfortable in their own shoes and saying, look, I don't want to go to a gym and get a gym membership. I just kind of want to go and meet people and kind of just navigate. And that also just creates awareness with the brand, but it's kind of like a soft sell, right? And that's kind of a healthy mentality too, where it's not always about, my interpretation of that, it's not always about take, but it's kind of like give, and by the way, this is who we are,
Yeah.
and
What attracted you to them? I mean, you've come to some of those events.
honestly, the people, just kind of speaking with you, talking to some of the other people, getting to know people in the community, and just appreciating the fact that, even if I go by myself, even if I don't really talk to anyone, it's cool to have this kind of this common, feeling with different people who are in it for the same reasons, about being health conscious and that sort of thing, and just knowing that it's kind of like a silent community.
Yeah.
And the also perk of, you get to meet a few people that live next door. And the cool thing about Lululemon is they do this stuff all over,
All the
anywhere
time.
you can find the brand.
Yeah.
So in terms of company culture, are there any other things that kind of stand out to you that you find to be just essential or remarkable about the brand, or anything that they perpetuate in those initiatives?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think on a daily basis, we check in with the employee and with our educators before each shift. We ask them, how are you doing? What do you need in this moment to be your best self? And we just care. I think as I'm a manager there, I just care about the well-being. So I think doing things like offering goal-setting sessions.
Mm-hmm.
We have an event called Purpose and Practice, where you're really taking 2.5 days, 3 days for yourself and diving into who you are, like the depths of your being, and taking that time out through yoga, through meditation, and offering that at no cost to
Yeah.
the educator or employee whatsoever, and saying, we're going to take care of this for you because we want you to have this experience so that you can just go out there and conquer whatever it is that you want to conquer.
And how long is that, and where is it? Like, is it a Lululemon kind of facility? I mean,
So it's not hosted like at a
Secret.
Lululemon, yeah.
Right.
There's not an underground club or anything
Yeah,
like that.
right.
I mean, we get, it's not Fight Club, but so it was just held. I just recently went to one. It was held here in Atlanta at the West End, and
That's awesome.
there are a little bit under 175 employees and ambassadors. Ambassadors
cool.
had the chance to go, and we just kind of talked about did some self-awareness exercises
Yeah.
and try to discover what's my purpose in life? Like, what are those big questions? And I
Yeah.
think that's what Lululemon does differently. We dive deep. There's not a lot of surface level conversation happening, which
Yeah.
is, I think, unique. I think other companies, there's a lot of talk on how can you be of service to the company.
Mhm.
Lululemon's question is, how can we be of service to you?
You know, and that's really, really fantastic, because I think they're thinking macro and long term in terms of the value of company culture. And I think some of the stuff we've talked about really, just wraps up, can help people, small business or big, wrap their minds around, giving to the employee, giving to the community, and the long term value in that. Before we wrap up, because I know we're getting to that time, social media is hugely important. How I like to define social media as kind of like my digital resume, right?
Yeah.
I want to put a real representation, but a good representation of myself, Why would you say that that's important with someone who has tenure, who someone appreciates company culture and considers themselves a professional? If you could just kind of summarize that for us, why would you say that's important for someone who's just starting out in their career?
I think just being aware, like you said, that is your digital footprint,
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to that self-awareness piece. And knowing, like, what is it that I want to put out, like, because it is personal branding,
Mm-hmm.
and is it authentic to who I am? Asking yourself those questions, and knowing that, when you are applying for that job, more than likely they are going to look you up on Facebook. It's the first thing that I do. They're going to look you up on Facebook. They're going to look you up on Instagram. Are those things that I want a future employee of mine to see? So just being aware.
And just appreciating, I guess it just goes back to self-awareness and just knowing at the outset, even if you haven't defined it yet, just be cognizant of how you represent yourself, even on a resume. You wouldn't give in an interview a resume that has, the dog chewed up the corner of the page, right?
Yeah.
So I completely appreciate that. In wrapping up, if you had one piece of advice to leave new professionals with, what would it be?
So I think the one piece of advice that I wish were given and given sooner is get a mentor. Get someone that
Great
you
piece
look
of
up
advice.
to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just somebody that you look up to that's done it, has gone before you, has laid that groundwork for you already, that prevents you from some of the hardships and failures that you might experience. And I say but you will. You'll fail often, and I hope that you do, because I think that's the absolute best teacher. But surround yourself with an amazing network of people that are going to uplift you, that are going to inspire you, that will motivate you to reach that next level, to be your best self, and that at the end of it are going to hold you accountable. So I think get a mentor, let them pour into you, soak up all of that information, and then at the end of it, like, be a mentor to someone else.
That's awesome. And I'll say, like, that's one of the reasons we started the podcast is, it's just kind of like an outreach of mentorship, for people who may not have that or may not have found it. That's what I love about technology and communication today. 10 years ago, I didn't necessarily have a way to just access anyone who I kind of admired successfully and say, what do they know? How can they share that? And, so I think that that's absolutely fantastic advice. But yeah, thank you so much, Sam.
Yeah,
it's been
you're welcome.
fantastic just
Thanks
getting
for
your
having me.
insight. Yeah.
Absolutely. I gotta say, your understanding of yourself from such a young age and the self-awareness that you've been able to carry throughout has been an incredible treat to listen to.
Oh, thanks.
Seriously,
Very
I think
refreshing.
there's a lot to be learned from, and it's not something I hear all too often from people. You remind me of kind of an actor in a sense of needing to understand, like, 'cause, in order to be successful in such a saturated market like acting is, and how everybody rolls over one day and goes, I think I could do this. The people that I've learned and who I look up to, talk about mentors and who I enjoy working with are the people that have from a very young age been self-aware. So I'm incredibly impressed with, and I don't think we could have had such a better guest for
Honestly,
such
I
a
don't,
topic.
and really,
Seriously.
I felt like we could bring all those points together, and I think you did a great job at it. And if you don't mind, you're in your early 30s, right?
Yeah, I'm 33.
Yeah, so it's great to see that you appreciate the tenure, you still kind of see where you want to go, and I can't wait to see, what happens for you from here. I mean, I know the sky's the limit, and we want to thank everybody for listening. If you want to get to know Sam on Instagram,
Where can we find you?
I'm at Samentha Carpenter, just at Samentha Carpenter, first name, last name, yeah.
you want to, Carpenter, I think everybody has a grasp on that. You want to spell that first name just in case?
Oh, yeah. So it's Samentha. It's a little funky.
Unique.
Yeah, yep. unique, exactly. Spelling mistake that never got corrected. So
Yeah.
here we are.
That's a first, yeah. You know, but if you find you want to learn more about Lululemon and their company culture and brand, it's pretty easy to do that. It's at Lululemon, and they're pretty much everywhere. But we'd like to thank you all for listening today. Thanks, Sam, for joining us. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, subscribe and please rate us. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't. And we look forward to hopping in the tank next time.
Thanks
Until
for being
then,
here.
yeah.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Yeah.
for checking us out on the Think Tank. We'll see you guys next time.
You see, the only thing that matters are the decisions you make and the mindset you have. Gratitude, hard work, patience. These are the keys. My name is Brandon Akira, and this is the Think Tank.